What's up guys, and welcome to the very first episode of my brand new FIFA 23 career mode. This is going to be a Newcastle United career mode taking over the Magpies at St James's Park, and I'm really excited to be using Newcastle for the first time. I've never used Newcastle before, and I thought it'd be a fantastic team because of course what a change they have undergone in just the past few seasons. Back in October 2021, Mike Ashley's long reign of terror at St James's Park came to an end, and a Saudi-backed consortium took over and took charge and took new ownership. When they took over, Steve Bruce was in charge, and I know I've just given some Newcastle fans some very painful memories, but Steve Bruce was in charge, was dismissed I think the very following game after a loss to Tottenham Hotspur. Eddie Howe took over, and whilst admittedly it wasn't the greatest of starts, they went on a phenomenal run in the second half of that 2021 to 2022 season to overcome a horrific start, an embarrassing cup set to Cambridge United in the FA Cup at home, and ended up surviving comfortably with a really good run towards the end of the season. The following season, Eddie Howe's first full year in charge of Newcastle United, he was a contender for Manager of the Year. He led the Magpies to a top 4 finish, bringing Champions League football back to St James's Park when only just a few years ago they were in the Championship, and also a League Cup final where of course they came up short to Manchester United. So what a change for Newcastle United over the past few years. I'm sure the fans can't really believe their luck. For all the dark days and the dark times under Mike Ashley's reign, and all the tough moments they had going down to the Championship a couple of times in the past 10-15 years, to now be playing Champions League football for the following season. It's been an amazing turnaround from Newcastle, and of course you can say that the money has helped tremendously. Not a single Newcastle fan will deny that. But ultimately, the squad, whilst it has had a lot of investment, has also really seen a change in culture. This Newcastle team has gone from being a side who you didn't really know what their identity was to now being seen as a very hard team to beat. Eddie Howe's got them drilled really well in their 4-3-3, and he's done a tremendous job. Whilst I personally would have given Gary O'Neill the Manager of the Year award last season, Eddie Howe would have been a close second or third alongside Roberto De Zerbi. So for the new season with Newcastle United, I obviously have changed the Premier League teams around and the Championship teams around to now have Luton Town, Sheffield United and Burnley, as opposed to Leeds, Leicester and Southampton in the Premier League. And I have of course put the Magpies in the Champions League as well. For our first season in charge in the save though, and what would be Eddie Howe's second full season, and Newcastle's back in the big time, back in Europe's elite, back in the Champions League, well, for the transfer window, I don't want to sell too many players. Newcastle will sell a few players, I'm sure, in this window. They've also released a few players, such as Matty Longstaff, one of the Longstaff brothers, Kieran Clark, who was out on loan last year. He's been released as well. They've released a few players, and I do think they'll thin their squad out a little bit as well. But they do need to bring in some more quality, and I think they do need to bring in some more quality in depth as well. The Magpies team, there's quite a bit of deadwood still there. They've managed to get rid of quite a lot of it, but there's still a little bit that's still there. I know they'll want to improve, and particularly the depth of the team as well. The first team's really good. It's a very, very good Newcastle first team, but there is a bit of a quality and depth problem, I would say, outside the first 11 and the bench as well. So when you're competing for, well, what would be their first honour since 1955, not a lot of people that don't follow football that closely actually know this, but Newcastle's last major honour, you heard me right, 1955. If you're not a big or a massive Premier League watcher, you might not know that. But yeah, Newcastle's last major honour, you probably would have thought, maybe 1990s, early 2000s. No, 1955 FA Cup final, their last major honour. Incredible. Obviously had the chance last year, kind of short to Manchester United in the Carabao Cup final. But the Newcastle fans would love an end to that major trophy drought. If they are going to do that, whilst also try and keep themselves in the top 4, they'll need more quality and depth. So in the transfer window, I will try and keep it realistic. We'll have £73 million to work with. You've seen I've made my first signing. I've kept it realistic. I've signed Sandro Tonali from AC Milan. He of course signed for, I believe, 55 mil plus add-ons as well. But Tonali in from Milan, that was £57 million. I sold Manquillo to Freiburg. I'm going to sell Dubravka to Augsburg. Matt Ritchie, I accepted a bid here from Leeds for 1.6 mil, although this deal actually fell through due to a player contract issue. And Ryan Fraser's going to Crystal Palace. You might notice I rejected bids for Fraser and Ritchie as well from foreign-based clubs. If this is the first career of mine you've watched, then firstly, hello, welcome. I do try and keep things very realistic, not just with the signings I make, but also the sale destinations as well. Fraser more realistic there to go to Crystal Palace, I would say, and Ritchie to Leeds as well. Sadly, Matt Ritchie's deal fell through, but Fraser went to Palace to play under Roy Hodgson, and also Dubravka went to Augsburg, as Manquillo went to Freiburg as well. So yeah, we sold a few players there. Like I said, we won't sell too many players. I'm not going to gut the whole squad, sell everyone over the age of 26 and just bring a bunch of wonder kids. And I do want to try and keep it realistic if I can, and look for Newcastle targets they've targeted either in the past or the recent history, or they're linked to this summer and hoping to sign. One of those players is Arsenal left-back Kieran Tierney. Yep, there's been lots and lots of talk that this guy will be coming in over the next couple of weeks or so. I gotta say, I'm very 50-50 about this one. I decided to buy him in the end for, I think it was £23 million from Arsenal. I'm not too sure about this. I feel like Premier League clubs are kind of holding Newcastle to ransom a little bit, knowing their financial situation and the seemingly limitless funds they'll have. But I don't know if Tierney is going to join Arsenal. I think he might. In the end, I decided to go for him. I had two names on the shortlist, Tierney and Livramento. But I don't think the Saints want to let go of Livramento after just 1 year. I think they'll try and price him out of a move. Obviously, Tierney Livramento coming in from Chelsea, of course. I think they'll want him to stay in the Championship as part of their rebuild there at St Mary's. But Tierney, yeah, I guess I could see that one there. Kieran Tierney going to Newcastle. He has been heavily linked. And like I said, I'm kind of 50-50 on whether he'll go or not. But in the end, I decided to go for it. And as I say all the time, like if you're new to this channel, I do try and keep it realistic, but every now and then, guys, I am going to get it wrong. Tierney might end up staying at Arsenal. He might go elsewhere. He's been linked to a sensational return to Celtic, although I really can't see that happening. But I might get it wrong every now and then. If I get it wrong, all I can do is apologise, but I do try my best to keep it as realistic as possible. I know Tierney has been heavily linked. That's why I bought him in. Matt Ritchie in the end went to Middlesbrough. You would have seen I had a bid there from Al Nassr, obviously Cristiano Ronaldo's new club. Now, I accepted it because this is something quite interesting. I have to say, with Saudi Arabia and the Saudi League, we've seen them buy so many players over the past few weeks. I mean, the domino fell, or I should say started with Cristiano Ronaldo's blockbuster move back in the winter. But with all the deals that the Saudi clubs have been pulling off, I have to say, with their links to Newcastle United, I really did believe they were going to sign a lot of the Newcastle deadwood. Like, a lot of the Newcastle players that are there, that, you know, maybe Eddie Howe doesn't have much of a long-term plan for. I'm thinking the likes of Jamal Lewis, Loris Karius. I had this feeling that we were going to see them rocking up at a Saudi club next year. They get a very nice cash deal, brown envelope slipped to them. I had a feeling that was what was going to happen. In the end, the Saudi leagues decided to go for the Chelsea players. But, I mean, they've gone for everyone, really. Obviously, Ruben Neves gone from Wolves, blockbuster deal there. I actually thought they were going to go for the Newcastle players, personally, due to those Saudi links. So that's why if Saudi clubs do put in bids for my players, I think it would be realistic to let them go. Although, funny enough, it's not actually happened in real life. Yeah, I should say, although it might still in the future. But even so, yeah, he ended up choosing Middlesbrough, so chose another club in North East and stayed rather close to home there, Matt Ritchie. But I did make my third signing of the window, and because Newcastle are going to be in the Champions League next season, if you know me, I'm big on what you call homegrown players, and Newcastle, they've got quite a few academy players, but not so many that are in their sort of senior pro days now playing for the club. Paul Dummett is obviously one of those players. I don't think Gillespie counts. I don't think. I might be wrong. And I don't think Dan Burn counts either. He might. Dan Burn and Gillespie, Newcastle fans, correct if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure if they count for the homegrown rulings. But one player that definitely would is Freddie Woodman. Obviously, we sold Dubravka, our backup goalkeeper, to Augsburg there. Karius, Gillespie, no plans to keep them past their contracts come the end of the season. I think they're still at Newcastle at this point right now, but I know their contract expired at 30th June, so I think probably right now they're probably still on like week-by-week deals, I think. I don't know. But yeah, for me, I would like to get some more homegrown players into it. That would be in the case. Freddie Woodman, 1 year at Preston last year, did a really, really good season. Had a really good season at Deepdale last year. Preston fans will tell you that. Really, really solid goalkeeper in the Championship last year, Freddie Woodman. We're going to bring him back after 1 year to the Magpies to be our backup goalkeeper for Nick Pope, primarily for the homegrown standings. That's going to be really important. Again, we do want to keep it realistic, and that is something Newcastle fans now need to worry about. Anyway, for the first game of the season, with the Magpies, we were away from home, taking on Sheffield United, a newly promoted side to the Premier League. Heading into the game, we wanted to start off with the 3 points here. For me, this season with Newcastle, my aim is keep them in Europe, and hopefully the top 4 as well. I think that's what Eddie Howe and Newcastle fans should be hoping for the following season as well. Last year was amazing, you know, Carabao Cup final and top 4 as well. Chelsea, I'm sure, will bounce back under Pochettino. Whilst I do think it will take them at least a couple of seasons to really get back to a top-performing level, they will bounce back. They will be better than last year. There's no doubt about that. Spurs had an awful lot of issues off the pitch last season. I think once they sort things out in the summer, primarily what happens with Harry Kane, whether he stays, whether he goes, once that saga comes to an end and we know for sure whether he's going to stay for the final year or leave somewhere else, I think Spurs, once they put that behind them, they'll do quite well next season as well. Obviously, Liverpool really stumbled out the blocks last season but turned it around. They will also be going for a top 4 place as well. Can Aston Villa build on their great season last year under Unai Emery? Same with Brighton and De Zerbi, and I guess you want Brentford and Frank as well. I mean, for Newcastle to stay in the top 4, it's going to be really, really hard. So if I'm a Newcastle fan, I say, listen, we're going into the Champions League. That's absolutely amazing, and the thing we were dreaming of just a few years ago, it's now become our reality. But just stay in Europe. If it's not the Champions League for more than 1 year, fair. Do you know what I mean? If you drop to the Europa League, fair. If you drop to the Conference League, fair. Just stay in Europe. Just keep European football at St James's Park. And that's going to be my mentality in our first season as well. If we're going to end that major trophy drought since 1955, unbelievable. If we can stay in the top 4, unbelievable. But with the quality of teams in the Premier League and as it gets stronger year after year and more competitive year after year, just make sure we keep European football at St James's. Yes, of course, we want to make sure it's Champions League, but if it's not, and we drop down to the Europa League, for example, I'm not going to complain that much, really, considering where Newcastle were just a few years ago. So we won the first game 4-1 away at Bramall Lane against the Blades. Blunted them very easily in that game. Very dominant display. And then for the following game, Manchester United looking for revenge after the Carabao Cup final defeat at Wembley last season. Taking them on here, my first game at St James's Park. I often say this, like the first game of the season, you want to win your first game always, but you also want to make sure you win your first home game as well. First game in front of the home fans, you want to make sure you get off to a good start. Taking on the Red Devils here at St James's Park. What an amazing start. Straight from kickoff, really. Alexander Isak gives us the lead, and then 18 minutes in, he makes it 2. His 3rd goal of the season already. This guy's unbelievable, man. Like, he really, really is. He's such an amazing striker. What a pickup he's been from Real Sociedad. So, yeah, brace for Alexander Isak, and 3 goals already for him this season. There is absolutely no doubt about it. He will be going for the Golden Boot this year alongside Erling Haaland. He's such a brilliant, brilliant striker. No doubt about that. And the tall Swede, certainly hard to handle in this game, no doubt about that. But even so, for the following game, we had Wolves in the Carabao Cup. Again, last year reached the final, losing to Manchester United. But if you're a new viewer to my channel, then basically the Carabao Cup to me is sort of like the first couple of rounds, you just throw the kids and the races out. When we get a little bit further, we do start to take it seriously. If we get to the quarterfinals or the semi-finals, for example, it's not going to be a fully rotated side. We'll put a few starters in there. But the Carabao Cup is, of course, our 4th and lowest priority. We're in the Champions League. We don't need to worry about this competition. Yes, it would be amazing to win it. It would be a major honour, first since 1955. Yes, last year the Magpies were in the final. And yes, of course, it is a qualifier, technically, for Europe, for the Conference League nowadays. But, let's be honest here, it's our lowest priority by quite some distance. We lost the game 4-0 with a backup side. I did not mind one bit. As to the Champions League, let me explain this. What I've done is I've taken out Liverpool, Spurs and Chelsea, and I've just put in us, Manchester United and Arsenal as well. So Arsenal have gone in Chelsea's group, Manchester United have gone in Spurs' group, and we've gone in Liverpool's group. So basically the groups are the exact same as last year, or last season I should say. It's just that we've taken Liverpool's place, Arsenal have taken Chelsea's place, and Manchester United have taken Spurs' place. So yeah, it's the same groups as last year, it's just that we've replaced those 3 teams that have dropped out of the Champions League for the following season. So our group's going to be Napoli, Ajax and Rangers, which I would say is, you know, quite a fair group, I would say, for Newcastle's first year back in the Champions League. One we can get through, but certainly not an easy one either. So yeah, anyway, final game of today's episode, final one of August, taking on Nottingham Forest away at City Ground. Steve Cooper last year did a great job in keeping Forest up after all the change in the summer. I mean, what was it, 21 new arrivals? Incredible. They had a whole new squad, and in the end they managed to survive a couple of games to go. Fair play, they had back-to-back wins, including against Arsenal as well. Fantastic couple of wins in succession for Steve Cooper to ensure they would survive with a game or 2 to go. So taking them on to City Ground, we fell 2 goals behind really, really early. So very tough start here away at the City Ground. Fabian Schär who's got to be one of the best budget buys Newcastle have ever pulled off. What was he, £3 million? Incredible how he's totally found his confidence under Eddie Howe. But once again, another bit of proof there that whilst people will look at the Saudi money and say, you know, that's the main reason why Newcastle has such a change in fortune, pardon the pun, no doubt, no one's going to deny that. But when you look at some of the players that have still been there since that time, confidence, I think, is what Eddie Howe's given to a lot of his players. Joel Linton, under his new role, one of those players as well. Fabian Schär, he looked like Bambi on ice at times under Steve Bruce. Under Eddie Howe, he's become a really, really solid player. Even so, he scored our first goal as he got back to 2-1, and then Alan St. Maximin made it 2-2, a real fan favourite there. St. James gave us the leveller. So 2-2 draw there at City Ground. We don't make it 3 wins from 3 in the Premier League, but we do avoid our first defeat in the league. Totally fine getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup, and on deadline day, we did absolutely nothing. Yep, no money to spend, so I just went straight for it and left it as it is. For now, I'm liking how the Newcastle team is looking. We made 3 signings, one that's coming in real life already in Tonali, one that might come in real life in Tierney, and also a homegrown goalkeeper for the bench in Freddie Woodman. I'm pretty happy with how our team's looking. We haven't broke the budget. So we haven't broke a ridiculous £1 billion budget. We haven't spent unlimited funds. We've kept it realistic. And I like how the team isn't just full of wonder kids. It's kind of what you could see next season in real life. But that will end today's episode of the Newcastle United Career Mode, guys. Big fan. If you've watched it and enjoyed it. If you hadn't, please drop a like. You all have a fantastic day. And I'll see you for the next episode of the Newcastle United Career Mode very soon.